The shooting range was filled with noise and chatter, rifles cracking in sharp rhythm, and the smell of gunpowder hanging in the air. But in the middle of it all, one figure stood out, a young woman who looked far too calm for the chaos around. Her name was Elena Varga, small in frame, long dark hair tied back simply. Nothing about her screamed soldier or sniper. And that was exactly why the others began to laugh when her first shot missed the mark. The target stood 800 meters away. A white silhouette with a small black center, the standard test for every trainee. Elena squeezed the trigger gently. The rifle barked and the round hit wide, 5 centimeters off the bull's eye, enough to draw whistles and laughter from her teammates. One of them, a tall recruit with too much confidence, leaned over to his friend and whispered loud enough for everyone to hear. "Zeroing like that, she will hit the moon before she hits the target." The line was met with more chuckles, heads shaking, some already dismissing her as a beginner with no chance of passing. Elena did not argue. She did not blush. She did not even flinch at the teasing. Instead, she reached for the scope knobs, her hands moving in a strange rhythm, her fingers twisting with confidence, but also with an odd precision that did not look like anything the instructors had taught in the classroom. It looked almost rehearsed, like a dance her hands had memorized long ago. Among the group stood Sergeant Hale, a man whose weathered face told stories of deserts and mountains, whose eyes were trained to see details others ignored. While the rest of the trainees laughed, Hale narrowed his eyes and leaned forward slightly. There was something in the way Elena adjusted the scope, something he had seen before but had not expected to see here in the hands of a recruit who was supposed to be new. His voice came low, almost a whisper only he could hear. "That's no rookie." The range instructor called for the next shots. The other recruits lined up, rifles slamming against shoulders, brass clinking as rounds hit the floor. Elena waited patiently, her rifle resting steady, her breathing controlled, the laughter around her fading into the background like distant static. She was calm in a way that did not match the nervous energy of those around her. It was almost unsettling. When her turn came again, a recruit behind her muttered, "This will be fun to watch." The girl is shaking already, but Hale's sharp eyes caught the truth. Elena was not shaking at all. Her movements were slow, steady, practiced. She inhaled, exhaled, pressed the trigger smoothly. The shot rang out. The bullet struck closer to the center, still not perfect, but the adjustment she made was unusual, far from the normal calculations. The class had been taught, and yet it worked. The laughter grew quieter, the chuckles less confident, a murmur of curiosity passing through the line. But Elena said nothing. She only repeated the same sequence, hands moving quickly, eyes locked. On the scope, ignoring every distraction, Hale folded his arms, his mind racing back to a memory he had buried years ago, in a faraway valley where another sniper had adjusted a scope in the exact same strange rhythm. By the time the session ended, Elena had placed her shots close enough to the center that the instructor raised an eyebrow, clearly surprised, but choosing not to comment yet. The recruits packed their gear, still whispering about the small woman who looked too quiet, too ordinary, and yet shot like someone with secrets, one muttered. Maybe she got lucky. Another insisted no beginner moves like that, but none dared say it to her face because something about her silence felt heavier than their jokes at dinner. In the mess hall, Elena sat alone at a corner table, her tray untouched for several minutes. She stirred her coffee slowly, eyes distant. The same recruits who had mocked her earlier laughed together across the room, telling stories of their past units, bragging about medals or deployments. Elena offered none. She kept her history locked away. And in military culture, silence about one's past was almost louder than words. Rodriguez, a friendly face among the group, approached her table, setting his tray down with a smile. "So where did you serve before this?" he asked. "Everyone has a story." But Elena only replied softly, "I have been between assignments, nothing special." The answer made Rodriguez frown slightly. Because every soldier spoke proudly of their unit, it was like naming your hometown. To dodge the question meant something was being hidden. But before he could press her, the range instructor entered the hall and announced loudly, "Tomorrow, the real test begins. 4 shots, maximum to zero your scopes at 800 meters. Anyone who fails will repeat remedial drills." The room filled with groans, complaints, nervous chatter. Everyone knew 4 shots was near impossible. Most snipers needed 10, maybe 12, to dial in perfectly. But Elena sat in silence, sipping her coffee slowly, her eyes steady, as if the challenge was already solved in her mind. Across the room, Sergeant Hale never took his eyes off her, his whisper from earlier still echoing in his head. "That's no rookie. No rookie at all." The next morning arrived with a heavy sky of gray clouds. The air was cool and calm, perfect weather for shooting. The range stretched wide and silent except for the echo of boots as the trainees lined up, rifles in hand, faces tight with nerves. The instructor's voice cut through the morning air as he reminded them, "Today, each of you must zero your scope in only 4 shots, not one more. Anyone who cannot do it will face extra training and extra duty." Groans filled the line. Heads shook. Some whispered, "This is impossible." But Elena stood quietly, her rifle steady against her shoulder, her expression unreadable. The first trainee stepped forward, his hands shaking slightly. He fired, missed the bull's eye, adjusted, fired again, missed again, sweat forming on his brow. By the 4th shot he was closer, but not perfect. The instructor marked him for remedial drills. The trainee cursed under his breath. Others muttered that this test was unfair. One by one, the shooters took their turns. Some failed early, some came close, but no one managed perfection. The mood of the group grew heavier with every missed shot. Then Elena's name was called. The recruits turned with curious grins, ready to watch her stumble. One whispered loudly, "This will be funny, she barely hit anything yesterday." Another added, "Maybe she will waste all 4 shots in the same spot." Laughter bubbled, but fell silent as Elena lay down on her mat, rifle braced, her breathing calm and steady like she had done this 1,000 times before. Sergeant Hale at the far side of the range narrowed his eyes again. Waiting, Elena fired. Her first shot. The bullet struck 4 centimeters to the left of the center. The recruits snickered. "Zeroing like that will take her all day," one of them said, but Elena did not answer. She simply reached for the scope knobs, and here is where something strange began. Instead of adjusting the way they had all been taught, she made a sharp turn far more than the error required. She fired again. The shot landed deliberately wide to the right. The recruits looked at each other confused. Some laughed harder, thinking she was failing even worse. But Hale leaned forward, his chest tight. He recognized something in the rhythm of her hands. Elena made another adjustment, this time swinging the knobs in the opposite direction, further than the standard calculation suggested. Her third shot cracked. This one hit wide to the left. Recruits were whispering now. "What is she doing? Is she blind?" But Hale's memory was racing back to a desert battlefield where a sniper once used the exact same sequence under live fire. He could not take his eyes off her. Elena paused for only a breath, then made one final adjustment, carefully placing the scope setting directly between the 2 extremes. Her movements were deliberate, smooth, like someone following steps only she understood. She inhaled deeply, exhaled slowly, and fired her 4th shot. The bullet ripped through the air and struck the very center of the bull's eye, dead perfect. The sound of laughter around the range stopped instantly, like someone had cut the noise from the world. The instructor lowered his binoculars slowly, his mouth opening slightly in surprise. The recruits stared in silence. No one knowing what they had just seen, Rodriguez muttered under his breath, "That is not possible." She did not even follow the procedure. How did she do that? Another trainee whispered it must be luck. But even as they spoke, the silence felt heavy. Luck did not look like that, not with such confidence in every move she made. Sergeant Hale stepped forward slowly, his boots crunching against the gravel. His gaze locked on Elena, his voice low but sharp. "Where did you learn that technique?" The recruits turned to listen, confused. Elena only packed her rifle quietly, her expression calm, nowhere special, she said. But her tone carried something different now. Not the voice of a rookie, not the voice of someone guessing. Hale's eyes narrowed further, because he knew exactly what he had witnessed. He remembered a mission years ago, pinned down by enemy fire, his squad moments from being overrun, and then a calm voice had spoken over the radio, a voice that promised just 30 seconds to adjust. Then one impossible shot had saved them all. The adjustment sequence was burned into his memory. The same pattern he had just seen Elena perform. Hale's heart pounded. His whisper slipped out without him meaning to. Viper drill. The words carried through the quiet air. Some recruits frowned. In confusion, Viper. What? Is that a real thing? Nobody answered. Elena lifted her rifle case and stood without meeting anyone's eyes. She walked calmly back toward the equipment shed as if nothing had happened. Hale watched her go, his face unreadable but his mind racing with certainty. No rookie knew that. Technique, no classroom taught those moves. Only one kind of sniper could do what she had done in less than 2 minutes, Rodriguez called after her. Elena, what was that? Where did you learn to shoot like that? But Elena did not answer. She disappeared into the shadow of the shed, leaving the recruits buzzing with questions and the instructors unsettled. Hale remained silent for a long time, before finally speaking to the group, his voice heavy with meaning. What you just saw was no accident. That was something most of you cannot even imagine. And if she is who I think she is, then this course has just changed for all of you. The recruits looked at one another in confusion, whispers spreading quickly. They laughed less now. They doubted less because somewhere inside they all felt the truth. Elena was not ordinary, and her story was only beginning. The evening air around the base was cool and quiet. The sun had sunk behind the mountains, leaving a silver glow across the training grounds. Inside the equipment shed, Elena sat alone at a wooden table, her rifle disassembled carefully into pieces, every part laid out in a neat line on a clean cloth. She worked with calm focus, her hands moving slowly as if the ritual of cleaning was a meditation. The sounds of laughter from the barracks drifted faintly through the walls, but here she was, surrounded only by silence and the faint smell of oil and steel. The door creaked open and Sergeant Hale stepped inside. His boots heavy against the floor, he stood for a moment watching her, studying her careful rhythm, before pulling a chair and sitting down across from her. His eyes were sharp, filled with memories he had carried for years. He spoke without hesitation. Operation Red Dagger, Marja Province, Afghanistan, March 15, 2016. Does that mean anything to you? Elena did not look up. She continued running the cloth along the barrel, her face calm, her breathing even, but her hands paused for just a fraction of a second. Barely noticeable, Hale caught it. His voice lowered as he leaned closer. My team was pinned down that day. 8 of us trapped inside a broken compound. Enemy sniper had us locked. Every time we moved, he placed a round within inches. We were running out of options. No air support, no artillery, just waiting for the end. Then a calm voice came over the radio. Viper 2-1, give me 30 seconds to adjust. The memory burned, bright in Hale's eyes as he spoke. I never saw the shooter's face. I never learned the name. But I will never forget that voice, calm under fire. And I will never forget what happened. 30 seconds later, one shot cracked through the valley. One shot from over 2,000 meters, and the enemy sniper fell silent. My men survived because of that shot. I survived because of that shot. His words hung heavy in the shed like smoke that refused to clear. Elena placed the cleaned barrel carefully on the cloth, her fingers steady now. She finally glanced up, her voice quiet. I have served in many places, Sergeant, but not every detail is open for discussion. Hale shook his head firmly. No, that was not just any sniper. That was Viper 2-1. And what I saw today on that range was the exact same technique. Nobody else could have done it. Nobody else would even know how. He rolled up his sleeve slowly, revealing a small tattoo on his forearm. a coiled viper wrapped around crosshairs, the mark of a unit that was never officially listed in records. His voice grew softer. My spotter and I were assigned as support to Viper unit for a short time. I watched them perform miracles under fire, and I know for certain that only one person used that scope adjustment pattern. Only one. And that person saved my life. Elena looked at the tattoo for a long moment, her face unreadable. Then she returned to her rifle parts, her words calm. There were many skilled snipers during that war, many who never received recognition. Hale leaned forward. No, there was one, and she is sitting in front of me right now. At the doorway, Rodriguez appeared quietly. He had followed out of curiosity. He froze when he heard the words. Viper unit. What is that? He asked nervously. Hale turned his head slowly, his expression serious. It was a special operations sniper unit, classified beyond normal records. They used techniques no manuals ever taught. They carried missions. Nobody admitted happened, and when the wars shifted, the unit was erased from files. Elena stood slowly, gathering the cleaned rifle pieces into her case, her voice steady. I am just a student here, learning like the rest of you. But Hale refused to let the truth slip away, his voice sharper now. No rookie can zero a scope in 4 shots using Viper drill. No rookie can keep calm under that kind of pressure. You can deny it all you want. But I know what I saw. The recruits gathered near the door, whispering, some confused, some curious, some even a little afraid. Elena ignored their stares. She locked her rifle case and prepared to leave. But Hale's next words stopped her at the threshold. You told us something that day after the shot. You said, do not. Thank me, live the life I helped save, those exact words. And today you said them again. Elena's shoulders stiffened. She turned slightly, her eyes meeting his. For the first time, the mask of calm cracked just a little, her voice firm but quiet. Some things are better left in the past, Sergeant. The mission continues in other ways now. With that, she left the shed, disappearing into the night air, leaving Hale sitting in silence, his mind full of recognition, his heart full of gratitude. He could not express. Rodriguez stepped closer, his voice hushed. Sergeant, are you saying Elena is the one who saved your team? Hale exhaled slowly, his eyes still on the door where she had gone. I do not think, Rodriguez, I know. The recruits who had gathered were wide-eyed, the whispers spreading like fire. But it was not gossip now. It was something deeper, a quiet, respect that replaced their earlier laughter. Nobody mocked anymore. Nobody dared. That night in the barracks, the recruits lay awake replaying the events in their minds, remembering the calm precision of Elena's hands, the way her words carried. Wait, the silence that followed Hale's whisper. That's no rookie. And though none of them would ever see the classified files or know the full truth, they all sensed it. The woman among them was no ordinary trainee. She carried shadows of the past, shadows that held lives and battles within them, and the mystery around her only grew stronger. The next morning, the range was quiet, but the energy felt different. No more laughter at Elena, no more careless jokes. The recruits watched her with new eyes, eyes full of caution and respect. Sergeant Hale stood at the edge of the line, his arms folded, his gaze never leaving her. The instructor announced another round of training, more zeroing, more practice. But for many of the young recruits, their focus was not only on their rifles, it was on the small woman who had shown them something impossible. Elena went about her work in silence. She fired her shots, adjusted with precision, always calm, always steady, nothing flashy, nothing boastful. But her every movement carried weight now. Whispers spread down the line. Some recruits leaning to others asking if she really was who Hale claimed. Some refusing to believe, some convinced without doubt. Yet Elena herself never admitted anything. She never confirmed. She never denied. She simply kept moving with quiet purpose. That evening, after Chow Rodriguez gathered the courage to approach her again, he carried his rifle and a notebook in his hands, his voice unsure but full of hope. "Elena, could you maybe teach me that method, the one you used?" Elena looked at him carefully, her eyes searching his. "Why do you want to learn it?" she asked. Rodriguez swallowed, his voice steadying. "Because one day I might be in a place where 4 shots are all I get before someone dies." Elena was silent for a moment, then finally nodded. "Meet me here after evening meal. Bring your rifle. Bring focus words spread quickly. Soon more recruits arrived, some shy, some eager, all curious. Elena did not turn them away. She lined them up, had them lay their rifles down, and began speaking in her calm, steady way. "This technique is not about speed for its own sake," she said. "It is about precision when lives depend on it. Every adjustment must have meaning. Every breath must have control. Do not chase fast hands, chase understanding." The recruits listened, their earlier arrogance stripped away. Now they absorbed every word like it was gold. She made them practice calculations first, pen on paper, numbers for wind and distance, humidity and pressure. Over and over, she corrected their errors patiently. She explained why each change mattered. She had them feel the rifles in different weather, forcing them to understand how steel and wood reacted under shifting air. Some grew frustrated, some failed, but Elena's calm voice never wavered. "Smooth comes from repetition," she told them. "Perfect comes from knowing that every shot has weight." Days passed. The secret sessions continued. More recruits joined. Even some instructors stood quietly in the shadows watching. Hale among them, he said nothing. But pride grew in his chest as he saw how she taught. Not with ego, but with patience. Not with glory, but with responsibility. She reminded them constantly that this was not a game, not for showing off, not for bragging. This was for the moment when someone's life would depend on their aim. Weeks later, Rodriguez found himself in a faraway place, a dusty street in Syria. His squad pinned down by sniper fire, bullets snapping over their heads, his heart pounding, fear choking his chest. Then he remembered Elena's voice. Every shot matters, every breath matters. He steadied himself. Laid his rifle across broken stone, began the sequence she had drilled into him. First shot wide, adjust. Second shot wider, adjust again. Third shot crossing back, his hands shaking but remembering the pattern. The fourth shot, steady breath, smooth trigger. The enemy sniper fell silent. His squad lived, he lived. And in that moment, he understood. Completely. Rodriguez later wrote Elena a letter. His words rough, but full of truth. "Now I understand every shot carries a life. Thank you for teaching me." Elena received the letter weeks later. She read it quietly in her bunk, no expression on her face, but her hands tightened slightly around the paper. She folded it carefully and placed it inside her pack. No reply, no signature, just silence. But the meaning was there. Back at the training base, the sessions continued, new recruits arrived, old recruits moved on. But the whispers remained. About the woman who could zero in 4 shots, about the one Hale whispered was no rookie, about the quiet lessons after dark. On the range bulletin board, someone had pinned a scrap of paper, 4 shots, a lifetime to master. Nobody signed it. Nobody needed to. Everyone knew where it came from. Hale approached Elena one evening as she finished cleaning her rifle. His voice. "Softer now, ma'am. What you're doing here is more than training. It is legacy." Elena shook her head. "It is necessary, Sergeant. Knowledge dies if it is not passed. And when it dies, people die with it." Hale nodded slowly, understanding. He wanted to thank her, to say again what he had carried for years, but her steady eyes stopped him. He remembered her words. "You honor them by living the life they saved." So he said nothing, only gave a small respectful nod and left on her final day at the course. Elena packed her worn bag, shouldered it quietly. The recruits gathered, unsure of what to say. Rodriguez spoke for them all. We know you are not just a student. We know you carry more than we can understand, but you changed how we see this job." Elena gave a small nod. "Good, because this job is not about you. It is about the ones you protect." She walked away, her figure small against the wide horizon. Yet to those who watched, she seemed larger than anyone else they had ever met. And so her story remained, not written in files, not carved in stone, but carried in whispers, in lessons passed down, in soldiers who lived because of her hands, and in the quiet truth Sergeant Hale had spoken that first day. They laughed at her scope work until a veteran whispered, "That's no rookie.